Hello, everybody. Hello, can you hear me good? Okay, so before we get started, I see my internet is kind of shady today. We have Cox Cable. Cox Cable has been doing some work in our neighborhood this past week, so I'm hoping I don't lose you. Hi, everybody. Today, we are making candy canes, block number 6 of our 2022 Quilt As You Go project. Hi, everybody. I am so hoping that I don't lose you. I'm going to try to keep a good eye. If I do lose you, I will work frantically behind the scenes to get up another live stream. So if I disconnect and you lose the live stream, leave this, go to my channel, and patiently wait a couple minutes for me to set up a new stream. Hopefully, though, it was a fluke. Hello, everybody. Today we are doing raw edge applique 4 candy canes in block number 6. I'm also going to do a little bit something different with the batting to prevent some bulkiness and some extra fabric within our block. So you'll see that here in a second. Before we get started, Patreon members, if you haven't checked yet, go over to Patreon and download your block for this month. Is block number 10. The railroad crossing. I was just looking to see the name of it because I forget now. It's hard to keep track. And I cannot wait to see you during the workshop so we make that block together. Hi, everybody. And, okay, so if you have not subscribed yet, let me put this coffee down before I spill it. If you have not subscribed yet, you might want to do that. It's free to subscribe along our next project, y'all. I have some news. I'm not going to give away a lot of details, but I have some details to kind of perk your interest and get you excited. Our next project is going to start in January. The date is to be determined, okay? But in January, we're going to start a medallion mystery quilt. This quilt is going to measure 60 inches by 60 inches. It's square. It's a medallion style quilt, and it's going to be a mystery quilt. The patterns for it will be free during that series. So that's why I say subscribe, because you might want to follow along and download the patterns. After that series is over, that pattern is going in my Etsy shop, y'all. So get it while it's free. Get it while it's hot. Hi, everybody. It's so great to see you. Yeah, so I'm super excited. I'm not going to give you colors yet. I'm not going to give you details about the design yet. But start thinking medallion style quilt. When we do start, I will give you the colors that I'm using and fabric requirements, all that good stuff as we get closer to January. It's going to be fun. I hope you subscribe and follow along. Mary just said, I love surprises. Sheila said, sounds interesting. Jackie said, oh boy, I can't wait. I know, me too. It's going to be fun. And it's so hard to keep a secret, y'all. I have the quilt designed. I'm working on the patterns, finishing that up, and it's going to be so much fun. Okay, now let's get started. I'm going to switch over to the cutting mat. And it looks like our internet is green, so that means we're still good. Scooting over the PDF for block number 6, you'll see you have a few tracing templates. If you want your candy canes going in this direction on your block, make sure to trace from the back side if you're using a fusible, right? Like Heat and Bond, Steam-A-Seam, any of those fusible products. Gloria said, I need to retire to catch up on all the projects. I know it's a lot, right? It's a lot. This block, when finished, is going to measure 15.5 inches wide and 8.5 inches tall. Okay, and that's what the seam allowance is. So what I've done is I've cut both. This is going to be the top of my block, and that's going to be the back of my block. I've cut them both to exactly 15.5 by 8.5. I already did that. But this time, I pre-cut the batting to 15 by 8. I eliminated that seam allowance, and we're going to try that and see if that works. Okay? We're going to see if we can reduce some bulkiness. So let me turn on this iron and get her heating up. There she goes. She clicked. I have to listen for that click to make sure she warms up. I'm going to set this batting or the back fabric off to the side for a second. I want to center the batting right on the back side of the top of my block, okay? And I have a couple of little gadgets. I have a little ruler and I have a disappearing pin. I don't know that it has to disappear, but we're going to use that. And I want to make sure that I'm centering the batting right in the middle of the back of this fabric, okay? So I'm going to just give myself a couple little guidelines. I'm going to measure up from the bottom 1/4 inch, and I'm going to make myself a little guide. Is that working? Yep, it's working. See that? And then we'll come over on the left side and give ourselves a little guide. And this is just going to help us center that fabric, or the batting rather, right in the middle of that. And my hope and my thought process is no batting in these seam allowances, which will give us less bulkiness in that seam allowance, hopefully allowing this fabric to lay nice and flat. We shall see. So let me scoot this over because I am going to glue baste this on, y'all. I'm going to glue baste it. Oh no, I just dropped my back fabric. Let me grab that real quick. This is when an assistant would be really handy during a live. Okay. Sometimes I'm like, this table is huge, and other times I'm like, wow, I could really use like an extra 2 feet. Okay, so I'm going to bring in just a clear Elmer's glue stick, and I'm going to add a bunch of glue. This is not really going to make the block stiff. It's just really thin swipes of glue, okay? And I'm going to make sure that I really put a good amount along the edges, and then some good swipes through the center. Don't worry, we're going to dry this, so we're not stitching through any wet glue. And now I'm just going to line it up right along those guides that we just drew. See that? It gives me a nice, perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance on all the sides, right? And I'm just going to flatten that out because I'm going to add glue to this side of the batting as well. Along those edges. We'll see if this works. I can tell you though that the medallion quilt will not be a quilt as you go project. I do think if you make all the blocks for it, you could assemble it as a quilt as you go. Many of you have a lot more experience with quilt as you go projects than I do. But I will not be doing the medallion quilt as a quilt as you go. Lila said, does your glue stick get all fuzzy from the back? It does. It turns into a big fuzzy mess. And I have to wipe it off on some extra fabric in the trash can or something. It does. It gets messy. Now we're just going to line this back fabric right on top. See how perfectly everything just matches right up? And I'm going to flatten that out. And with my iron, I'm just going to dry that glue. And I'm going to press from this side, and then we're going to turn it around and press from the other side. We just want to make sure that that glue is nice and dry. And I was so darn excited to base these layers. I really wanted to, and I just thought about it, I really wanted to put my candy canes on first. I just get so excited. I want to thank my moderators today. Thank y'all so much for keeping an eye on the chat. And we're going to press from this side, but I'm going to let my iron charge up for a second. All right. I really meant to put the candy canes on first so I could center them a little bit better. If you're working at home on this block, you might want to do that. The same way that we've done the other blocks, right? Just do a little finger press to give yourself a guide right in the middle. Had I been a little bit slower, I would have done that first. That's okay. We're going to let this cool off for a second. There we go. So that batting is just nested right in the middle, right? No batting along these seams. I think it's going to work. So since I didn't do that, let me just give myself a nice little straight edge here. We're going to do this the hard way. 8 1/2, 8 1/2. That's 4 1/4 is the center. I'm going to just draw myself a little line since we jumped ahead a step. 4 1/4 is the halfway mark. This mark will disappear after we press everything, right? There we go. There's always a workaround. Okay, now we can fuse the candy canes in place. Let me move these out of the way because I'm going to knock them on the floor. All right, so I've already pre-cut my applique shapes, right? We have 4 candy canes, and I have Heat and Bond Light on the back side of my candy canes. And I'm just going to, with this first one, just fold it in half to kind of estimate where the center is, and then I will eyeball the rest. So there's one, and I kind of had them on a slant like that. I don't know that it matters. 2. I guess you could do them straight up and down. I also think, you know what? Every year there seems to be like a million new different candy cane flavors coming out, like bubblegum, Starburst, Nerds, cinnamon, wintergreen, all the flavors, and they're all different colors. Bubblegum. I don't think you can limit yourself to white candy canes. I think I would get creative. And if you like bubblegum candy canes, by all means, make your candy canes pink. Right? Now I'm just eyeballing this. I think that looks pretty good. We're going to do like a little rough estimate. There we go. This one needs to come down just a little bit more. There. We're going to fuse that in place so they don't move. And I'm just doing quick presses. I don't want to over press that Heat and Bond. And we still have some pieces to put on top. I can move that out of the way too. All right, so we have lots of little red pieces that we're going to be putting on top, okay? And I really think that you could do this in 2 different ways, okay? You could stitch down your candy cane now and then add your red pieces. If you don't want to stitch over with like a white thread, over your red pieces. Do you know what I'm saying? Or you can do it the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and put the red pieces on and stitch down the top and bottom of the red pieces and then stitch down a white thread all the way around. Again, a million different ways you could approach this, right? So we do have our candy cane stripes going a little slanted like that. So what I did, and you might find it helpful and you might have noticed, is I numbered the little pieces. I don't know that it matters too much. These two pieces are pretty distinct, right? But pieces 3 and 4, actually, I think they're both the same, so I don't know that it matters. I think I used the same shape and just duplicated it. So we're going to put that there. The little tip of the candy cane is going to go like that. Of course, I have the shaky hands today when we're dealing with little tiny pieces. I'm just going to put these in place and then I'm going to fuse them down, okay? And I didn't take the paper off of the 3s and 4s. Although, again, I think they're both the same shapes. Cheryl said, could you use felt for the small pieces? Absolutely. And then I don't think you'd have to do so much sewing around the edges, right? Especially like a wool felt. I know a wool, you could just tack them in place, really, right? And piece number 4. It's going to go like that. I actually like the idea of using some felt. Okay, there's all my pieces, and now we can work on arranging them. How could you paint this? Well, if you had a light box, a light pad, and you turned it up to the brightest setting and you're using a fabric for the top of your block that you can see through. Actually, I can see through black fabric with my light pad. I would line up the candy canes on your light pad and put this fabric over top and trace with a heat erasing pen. Come back, paint in your candy canes. That's how I would do it. Okay, so this is going to take me a minute, and I cannot guarantee that they're all going to be spaced out exactly the same. First, I'm just going to get these pieces lined up. Although I don't know that you'll ever find 2 candy canes exactly the same anyway, would ya? Again, I'm just tacking them in place, and then I'm going to press them, press them pretty good. Again, I don't want to over press my heat and bond. That's looking pretty good. We'll come back and we'll do the top pieces in just a second. I think that looks pretty good. So now we're lining up that piece. And I do think it's going to be easier with my hands, y'all, to hold this little piece steady. There we go. It's like having a little helper. That works so much better. So we're just going right across. Sit in there. There we go. Plus, this helps me not burn my little fingertips. I do think the smaller little iron that I use sometimes might be helpful for some of these smaller pieces. Of course, I think of these things after we start the live. But we're just working our way right across. Miss Trinita, I saw that you lost your aunt. I was so sorry to hear that. We will definitely be praying for you and your family. I surely hate to hear that. All right. This is our last piece right there. I did not use the SVG this week to cut my pieces. I was just running out of time yesterday, and so I cut them out by hand. You'll see they're not all exactly perfect, but that's okay. And now that they're tacked in place, I'm just going to give it a good press just for a couple of seconds and get all those edges bonded down. And we're going to let that cool off. Cheryl said, could you still applique around the candy canes after you paint? I don't see why not. You could certainly quilt right around them and quilt in the background, depending on the kind of paint you use and the kind of thread you're using. You could probably stitch right through it. Remember a while back ago, we did a stained glass art quilt that was a mystery quilt that was all painted, right? I quilted right through that paint. Kathy, get yourself a little pair of tweezers. That'll help so much. I'm just checking for loose edges. I think we're good. Oh, I like that. Marie said non-perfect pieces show the love that went into it, as my grandmother always said. Yeah, I like that. We're going to let that cool off. So what I've done, and the way I'm approaching sewing down these pieces, I have some red thread in the top of my machine, and I just have some white thread in the bobbin. And I'm going to do a quick zigzag stitch. But let me show you where I'm zigzagging. I'm not going to zigzag along the edges of the candy cane. I'm going to use a white thread and a blanket stitch to stitch down the edges of the candy cane. The white blanket stitch will show up on the edges of my candy cane, and I'm okay with that. What I am going to do with the red thread is stitch a zigzag stitch on the top and bottom edges, so that it kind of blends into the red stripe of the candy canes. That's my approach. So I have my open toe foot on, and a zigzag stitch set. Let me just show you my numbers because I did a little test. The zigzag stitch I'm going to use, the width is 2.4 and the length is a 0.9. So it's a moderately small, but not tiny, tiny zigzag stitch. And it should go pretty quick. And again, I'm just going to be moving from tops and bottoms of all of these. And then I'm going to switch the top thread to white. And it's going to take me maybe 5 minutes, hopefully a little less, to stitch all these down. So now is a good time for a bathroom break, or go get yourself something else to drink, some more coffee. I'm having to double up on the coffee today. All right, so let's move over to the sewing machine. Again, red thread for me on the top. And I'm just going to be doing a blanket stitch, or excuse me, the zigzag stitch right along the tops. And I don't even know that I'm going to do back stitches at the beginning and the end. My thinking is that when I do a blanket stitch around the edge, that will help lock these stitches in place. That's my thinking. You might want to do a back stitch at the beginning and the end. And I'm just jumping from one edge to the next. The awesome part is as we are stitching down the pieces for the candy cane, we are also quilting this block. Whoopsies. I want to stitch further than I wanted to on that one. All right, so the top is done on that stripe. We're going to just jump right down and do the bottoms and work our way across. And I will start cutting these jump stitches as we move across so that I don't stitch over top of them. And cut that jump stitch. I'm keeping an eye on the internet. I'm hoping that that doesn't act up while I'm sewing. And although that's a lot of little red pieces, I do think this part will go by pretty quick. I'm lowering my needle to the right of these little red stripes. now we're gonna just jump right down and stitch the top of the little tips of the candy cane. And as we're moving over, I'm going to do the tops of this next stripe too. And we're going to cut this jump stitch. When I stop before I jump over, I find it really helpful if I stop my zigzag stitch. You know, the needle goes left to right, left to right. I like to start in the right position, right next to the edge of the stripe, right? And then it jumps over into that ridge stripe. When I stop, when I'm getting ready to jump, I like to stop when my needle is in the left position, so that when I raise my needle, it's going to jump automatically to the right, and I'm ready to start right next to the edge of the stripe. I don't know if that's helpful for anybody. That's why I kind of slow down when I get towards the edge, because I'm just paying attention to that needle position so that when I start sewing, I can line my needle up right next to that little red stripe. Oh, I didn't mean to hit the camera. I'm sorry. All right, so now we're jumping down and we're going to do the bottom of that stripe. We're going to have lots of little jump stitches to trim away. All right, and now we're jumping down to this last stripe. So it's going by pretty quick. Jumping, jumping, jumping. Actually, I was just wondering what a red thread, a blanket stitch around the edge would look like. It would disappear in the red stripes in the candy cane and give a nice little border to the outside of my candy cane. Oh, what do you think about that? All right, so all we have left to do with the zigzag stitch is come right along the bottom of these pieces. What do y'all think? Leave the red thread in and do an outline stitch with the blanket stitch, or change to white? And this is our last one. And I'm going to go ahead and just cut that thread. So here are all of our red pieces stitched down. We're going to come over here. I am going to trim all of these jump stitches out of the way so that no matter what we decide to do, these jump stitches are not getting in the way and getting caught. Do red, red. I need to do the bottom. Ta-da. Oh, ooh, thank you. Thank you, Deb. Let me, before I switch that stitch, I missed one. Oh, I'm glad I saw that. I sure did. I just jumped right over top of it. Glad I saw your comment. All right, let me double check to make sure we didn't miss any. Okay, I think we're good now. Leave the red. Okay, the red. We're going to go with the red. So let me just trim all of these little jump stitches. And I really think I should trim them on both the top and the back, so we don't make too much of a mess on the back. So this is just going to take a quick minute. Yes, I have a hard time keeping secrets, y'all. I am so excited for you to see this medallion quilt. But I did think, it's been a while since we did a mystery quilt, that the mystery part of it would be fun. Some people love mystery quilts, and some people cannot stand mystery quilts. I get it though, right? It's a lot of time involved. It's a time investment. It's a financial investment with fabric and thread. So I totally get it if you're not into mystery quilts. I know I have several friends who do not like mystery quilts at all. So they wait till the end to see what it's going to look like before they pick their fabric choices. And I totally understand that. Let me go through and snip all these little jump stitches. I like to bring you along for the whole part of the process with these blocks. Sometimes I wait till after the live to trim these back stitches if they're not going to get in the way. But I do think we're going to trim these now, even though it's going to take a minute, because these are going to sort of make a big mess on the back if we don't. Even though it's a little time consuming. The bigger ones I can grab with my fingers pretty easy. Ooh, Wanda, you're going to join Patreon in January. Just to let you know, I think it's January 10, 11, 12. At the end of January, you might want to wait till the end of January, or just know that I am going to be changing the Patreon site all to one tier, a $10 tier. And so everybody's on the same exact tier. We're still going to do the fun workshops and the quilt retreats and all that fun stuff. It's just everybody's going to be on one tier. Okay, we're going to leave the red thread in, and I'm going to do a blanket stitch right around the edge of each one of the candy canes. Morgan said, what is a medallion quilt? Well, a medallion quilt, when I think of a medallion quilt, you have one center block and then rows or borders of different designs surrounding that one center piece in your quilt. When I think of medallion quilts, that's what, in my mind, that's what I think. It's got one focus block right in the middle, and then everything builds out equally around it. That's my definition of a medallion quilt. It might not technically be correct. All right, so let's go back to the sewing machine. We're going to leave the red thread in, and I'm going to choose a blanket stitch. Now, I have not chosen my settings for this, so let me go through on my test piece and see what we've got. I know I don't want it very wide. Oh, but I want it wider than that. All right, let's take a look at that and see. I'm going to bump it up to 2.4. Okay, so my blanket stitch, that's the stitch we're doing. The length of my blanket stitch that I'm doing, and it gives you an example, is 2.0 on the length and a 2.4 on the width. Now, you can start there and see what you think and make adjustments from there. I'm going to start right here, I think. Now I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly. The straight part of my blanket stitch is just riding right on that edge. Probably slow it down along these bottom little curves and probably along that curve right there. I think the red's going to look really cute. see, I'm just rolling this up just to fit everything right in that throat space. I do think a zigzag stitch would be a little quicker along the edge of these candy canes. But I do love the look of a blanket stitch. All right, coming back around this way. I'm trying to do it so my arms aren't in the way, y'all. And here's the dilemma of the live. I try to be quick, but I'm also trying to do a neat job. Because this is my finished block. It's going in my quilt. We're going to jump over and do the next one. So see that little blanket stitch? That is a nice little outline right along the outside. For many of you, it's lunchtime. You have time to go make a sandwich. You probably have time to run down to Taco Bell to do each one of the different sections. Sometimes in tutorials, I'll speed it up, like if I'm recording a video, but you don't really get an idea of how long it takes in real life to do it. You know what I'm saying? And then if it takes you quite a bit of time, you think, well, you know, wow, I'm so slow, or, you know, I'm just not that good at stitching things down because it takes me forever, when in reality, it takes everyone probably the same amount of time. All right, there's the second. don't know what I was thinking. I knew I was going to be doing these blocks live. Let's do 4 appliques with lots of little pieces in them. What was I thinking? Clearly I wasn't. I haven't, but cutting the back and the top to an exact finished, if you do that, you might want to keep that in mind when you're choosing the stitches to stitch down your applique. I think a denser, like a satin stitch, might draw in your fabrics a little bit, unless you add some kind of interfacing in that layer, right? Oh, let's hold on a second. Did I lose you there for a second? I just want to make sure we're going. I saw the red light on the internet. Are we good? Da-da-da-da. Off and on. It's been off and on. I see a green light right now. We're good? Unfortunately, I can't blame it on YouTube today, y'all. It's my internet today. My internet's been off and on all morning. Actually, all week. We've had the cable people in the neighborhood working on internet, running new lines. So, unfortunately, today it's me. All right, we just have a little bit left to go. Y'all bear with me. If I freeze up, just stick around. It'll probably pop back on. reminds me of the days of streaming during COVID. When everyone was on the internet, remember that? And the internet every day was acting up. Because it was just so overloaded. All right, we're almost there. And we did it. And we did it. All right, let me bring you back over here. So there is our little candy canes. I don't know how much it went in and out, but hopefully you didn't miss too much. But it was the same stitch on all 4 candy canes. So if you saw any part of it, you saw all of it. Right? Okay, so while we're here, I am going to go ahead and switch over to a gray thread because we're going to be joining our blocks next. And I've been using the same gray thread to do the top stitch on my sashing pieces. So let me just go ahead and get that put over. Hi, honey.
Hey.
Just letting you know we're live.
Yeah.
Okay, you know. Just making sure you're aware.
I'm just popping in.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
Come show them how cute you look while I'm rethreading this machine. Look how handsome he is in his suit coat, y'all.
Ooh, that's pretty. I
Thank
like
you.
the candy canes.
What do you think of the red outline stitch?
I like it.
Okay, good.
Is that a blanket stitch?
It is a blanket stitch.
Aha!
Wow, I'm so proud of you. And I think you're not listening.
All right, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye. And I'm also going to switch out my foot. I'm going to put on my standard foot for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We've been using a 1/4 inch seam allowance to join our blocks. So let me just get all that situated so I don't forget. All right, there we go. Ooh, I got a Nossie. Hold on a second, y'all. Ooh, it splashed. Wow, that was filled right up to the top. Yeah, he's learning. He does pay attention. Wow, that was like over full. He must be teleworking for the rest of the day, which is nice. I like it when he can do that. All right, so you know what? We're going to test the theory of using the shorter batting in the middle. So I'm not going to do any more quilting on this than stitching down the pieces, right? It is quilted right in those pieces. I know it's hard to see because it kind of blends into the back, but that's all the quilting stitching I'm going to do. So let's bring in the blocks we did last week, which were the Christmas trees in Merry and Bright. In this block, ooh, I don't want to spill this. Let me put it over here. This block is going to go right underneath. I'm running out of space. As this quilt grows, we're going to have less and less working space up here, right? So this block is going to go right underneath. Of course, you could swap out, you know, mix and match the order of these blocks all you want. Thank y'all for being patient as I stitched all these things down. That was a lot of stitching. All right, so the way I've been doing it with this quilt is not my favorite. We've already discussed that, right? I think we know that. But the way I'm going to keep with it, because once I started it, I'm going to continue all the way to the end. But the way that we join these, or the way I'm joining mine for this quilt, the seam is going to be on the top. So we're going to take these and we're going to put the back sides together. Just like that. We're going to line them up, and I'll probably do this over at the sewing machine. You could certainly pin that in place if you need to. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam right across that edge. All right. So I'm just going to line it up, line it up, line it up. Oops. 1/4 inch seam allowance, Lisa. There we go. And here's the thing, y'all, and I was just thinking about this. Even though I'm testing a new theory with this block underneath was last week's theory. And then we're going to be joining this section to the right of the snowman, which has batting all the way up to the edge of that seam. So I guess we'll find out if this theory really works as we piece some more down at the bottom. I do think it's going to help a lot, though. I'm just making sure everything stays nice and lined up all the way down. You might find it helpful to use a walking foot for this part. Alrighty. So we're going to take this back over. Thank you, Janine. I do love experiments. I love experiments better when they work. But how are you going to find out if it works or not if you don't try, right? Is open toe foot the best to use? I'll tell you, I use the open toe foot a lot for applique because I can see better, and I think that you can see better. But when doing like a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you might find it helpful to use an open toe foot. I use my standard foot, which I don't think allows me to see quite as well, but it helps me get a more accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. So my theory was we could open this up. Remember last week though, I had a little bit of batting in that seam. This one, guess what? There's no batting in that seam. So I do think it would work so much better. This seam, y'all, because of that batting in the seam of this block, that seam really wants to lay towards this side. So I'm going to just press it. But guess what? I don't have any fullness right there. So that's the way I'm going to approach the rest of the blocks. Now, before we join this section to the right of the snowman, we need to put this sashing piece in so that when we join this section, the edges of the sashing are hidden underneath of the sashing there, right? So let's just cut ourselves a little piece of sashing. Y'all know me, I'm going to glue baste it in place so it doesn't move around. Just a little bit of glue will do. And my thing is, and I have to look at the screen because I'm sitting down, or let me stand up. I want to make sure that it's kind of straight with this one, right? If it's a little wonky, I'm okay, but predominantly I want it to be straight. There we go. We're just covering up that seam. I can already tell you it's laying much flatter. Much flatter. All right, let's use a little bit more glue there. I don't want to have it go a little crooked as I'm sewing. Robin said, I'm going to cut my batting that way. I think for the next block, I'm going to continue to keep doing it that way, Robin. I think that was very helpful. Is there a reason for the blue instead of red or green? Are you talking about my sashing? It's just a color choice. You can use any color sashing you want. I saw somebody posted on Creative Crew. Actually, I've seen a lot. Y'all are doing so good. Someone used a black fabric. It had a print on it, a Christmas print, but it really separated those blocks really nicely. The blue is just a color choice, that's all. All right, so we're going to come in and do a straight stitch right across there. I'm switching over to a zipper foot for this part. Just a quick little foot change for me. I just have an easier time seeing. I want to ride right along that edge. We're going to sew this down. Oh yeah, that's much flatter there. And we're lifting up and we're coming back down the other side. Got a little buckling. I don't want that to buckle. All right. So there's our straight stitch on those two sashing pieces. Yes, that is my zipper foot. You don't have to use a zipper foot. I just find it useful to use a zipper foot. I like to use the feet of my machine, sometimes for reasons that they weren't specifically made for, but I find them helpful. You know what I'm saying? All right, so there's the sashing in that piece. And now this section here should be the same length from top to bottom as our snowman section. So let's bring in that. And it's all not going to fit, right? It's all not going to fit. The top edge should match the bottom edge. Now, if it doesn't, for any reason, I feel like you have some wiggle room here. Like if this section's too long, you have a little wiggle room to trim there. You have a little wiggle room to trim at the bottom of this block, right? I feel like you could do that. Okay, so we're going to put back sides together. And we're going to sew this edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, I do think that this seam is going to be quite bulky because this was before I switched over. You know what I want to do? Before I switched over to not putting the batting in the seam, I think I want to grab some binding clips for this part. I'm starting to get some size, and I need some little helpers. So I just have them lined up. I'm going to put a couple of binding clips just to keep them lined up as I sew right down. Okie doke. Linda, I'm so glad you're here. Oh, Karen said if you stop your cover strip, that's a good idea. You'll have less bulk. So if I stop the sashing strip a 1/4 inch away from the edge, there will be less bulk in that seam. That's a really good idea. It's too late now. But that's good for moving forward, right? Okay. And it's good that you're sharing that because I know lots of people are just watching and they don't have time to start this quilt yet. And so that's really good information for them to know before they get started. All right. We're back to a 1/4 inch. And I do think my little light, you can't see it. You see the base of it? I think that's going to get in the way. You'll see I'm just taking my time. Again, your walking foot will probably be really helpful for this. I just want to make sure this is lined up straight across the top. There we go. Keep it straight, Lisa. There we go. And that looks good. I can see I'm going to have to figure out a new place for that light as we get bigger with this quilt. The awesome thing is, with this quilt, this is as wide as we're going. This is going to be a nice little wall size quilt. Just in time for Christmas. But the length is going to be, we're adding to the length at this point. Let me turn this way. There we go. And let me get these out of the way so I don't lose them. So we have some bulk in this seam because of the batting of the snowman block, right? I'm going to tell you, because I brought that sashing to the edge, this seam really just wants to ride right over towards that snowman block. So I'm not going to fight it, y'all. I'm going to let it be the boss this time. And I'm just going to try to press that seam towards my snowman block. I'm even going to add a little bit of steam to help it along. I don't think it's horrible. It's definitely thinner down that way. Okay, so let's bring in another sashing piece, and this is the last part for today. And I'm just going to pre-cut my piece. Let's see, let's try it. Let's go a little bit less so that the sashing right here will be less thick in that seam. Let's do that. All right, glue stick. Yeah, someone asked if my glue stick gets yucky. It does. That's batting from where we glue basted the layers. I'm just going to add some glue to the back of this. You could pin it in place if you'd rather do that. And this time, I'm going to stand up for this. This time we're going to do that. We're going to bring that sashing a little bit away from that edge to create less bulk in that seam. That's a fantastic idea. I just want to lay it down so that it's straight or somewhat straight. There we go. All right, let's do it. I'm blurry. Yeah, my internet is horrible today, y'all. I apologize. If I could fix it, I certainly would. Okay, we're going to let that cool off for just a second. And just like we did with this first one, we're just stitching right up one side and down the other. I can go ahead and trim off that a little bit. I like to start and stop there. My machine likes to have that leader strip, y'all. Especially when I'm starting from the very edge of anything. All right, that's good and cooled off, and that glue is dry. So back to the sewing machine one last time for today. I'm going to have to fold this up to fit in there. And, whoops, there we go. All right. Oh, she's wanting to go wonky. All right, straighten up, quilt. There we go. No, not off the edge. All right, I'm gonna have to scoot that light back. There we go. You might want to put your walking foot on for this part. I'm not gonna lie. All right, that was a bit of a struggle. Let's turn it around and come back the other way. Let me roll up this part. Rolling it up. I think, because that's a little short right there, right? I think I'm going to do a little back stitch when I start this, so that this stitch doesn't come undone before we add the section underneath of here. I think that would be smart. I think definitely holding this quilt up is going to be helpful at this size, because the tension of it falling off or draping really wants to drag the whole quilt sideways. I think that's what was happening going down that first side. Okie doke. Let me go ahead and trim up the very top edge. I'm just eyeballing it. We're going to have a binding over the very edges of our quilt, right? So there we go. I'm just going to do a quick scan and then I'll hold it up for you. So there we go. We're going to try that and see how that does. Unfortunately, the first sashing strip I brought right to the edge. But we're going to see, and we'll start doing it like that and see if that doesn't help prevent some of the bulkiness in those seams. But I think the candy canes are super cute. They were a lot of fun to stitch down too. So let me come back here and I'll hold this up. So just to give you an idea of size, this is how wide our quilt is going to be from one side to the other. I think that looks great. Yeah, I'm loving it. I love it. I do think I really like the batting trimmed a 1/2 inch smaller than the finished size of the block. So we're going to continue with that next week and go with that. I think that was really helpful. And I did not have a lot of fullness and extra fabric wrinkling in the background. So that's lovely. Thank y'all so much. So next week, we're doing more words, y'all. If you followed me for very long, you know I love putting words and sayings in my quilt projects. This one's no different. We have 3 blocks in this quilt that have words in them. I believe we're doing Joy to the World next. Now, just to let you know, if the thought of doing those words next week is going to stop you from making this quilt and you really want to make the quilt, but you're like, I don't want to fussy cut all those words, I don't want to stitch down all those words, feel free to swap it out with any applique that would look really great in your quilt, right? It could be something you draw yourself. You're not stuck to what I'm doing for the applique. So just so you know that. Candy said you could add a couple simple blocks to the ends to make it a table runner too. That's a great idea. Y'all always have really good ideas. So I'll just hold it back up again. I like the stripes and the candy canes. I do think, like, I don't know what I was thinking when I designed this quilt. 3 Christmas trees, 2 snowmen, 4 candy canes, and I did not think the whole time I was doing this that I'd be stitching, why did it not dawn on me that I'd be stitching down all of these during a live? All right, y'all. I look forward to seeing your blocks and your quilt progress on Creative Crew. If you haven't joined yet, there's links down in the description box. I don't know if you see the little note I put up here. Lots of people are having a hard time trying to find out where I'm putting the links. And it's probably because they're brand new to my channel. So the free PDF is in the description box. If you want the cutting file for the candy canes, if you have a cutting machine, the link is in the description box. If you want to find me on Facebook, it's in the description box. And that is how you open up the description box on a cell phone or tablet or on a computer. Those are the things you're going to look for. If you're here live and you're trying to find it, you have to leave the live chat. Underneath the title, you'll see more or show more. Now, it might be a year from now you're just watching this and YouTube changed how you find it. But right now, look for more or show more and click on it. And then you'll see all the blue links. Yeah, Candy said they changed how it looks. Things are always changing all the time. All right, y'all. I hope y'all have a fantastic weekend. I have a quilt appointment in 30 minutes. So, yeah. I hope you have a great week. I will see y'all next Friday. Deborah said, are the links on YouTube only? Sometimes I remember the free stuff, right? Sometimes I remember to upload it to the file section in Creative Crew. And then sometimes my week is just so busy that I forget to do it. I don't know that I loaded it there last week. But usually if someone will tag me in a reminder, it helps remind me to do that. So a lot of the times, if you're on Facebook and you're in the Creative Crew, if we're doing free projects like this, I will post the PDF in the file section there. Other than that, if it's a paid version, like the cut file, you can just head straight over to Etsy and search Lisa Capen Quilts, and you'll see the cut file for the candy canes. And then everything else is in the description box. Okay, y'all. Have fun sewing. Please share your pictures so we all can see. I love seeing all of the different design choices, all of the different fabric choices, and embellishing choices. Y'all are really doing some really fun things with eyes and buttons and scarves. And so I think it's really fun that you're sharing that because you're sparking ideas for someone else. So thank you so much. Okay, everybody. I'll see you next Friday.